The world was a silent, dusty grave. Its official name was K-77, a number on a star chart. To Jin, it was a mystery waiting to be solved. Her boots crunched on the fine red sand as she stood before the entrance of the structure. It was not a building made for humans. The archway was tall and narrow, made of a dark, smooth stone that seemed to drink the light from the system's dim sun. Beside her, Min adjusted the strap of his heavy toolkit. "Doesn't look very welcoming," he said, his voice muffled by his environment suit's filter. "That's because it wasn't built for us," Jin replied, her eyes tracing the strange shapes carved around the arch. They were not pictures of animals or people. They were spirals, interlocking lines and patterns that looked like frozen sound waves. "It's beautiful," Min grunted. He was a practical man. His job was to keep their small shuttle working and to make sure they could leave this dead rock. Jin's job was to understand the dust and the stones. They stepped inside. The air was still and cold. Great pillars held up a ceiling lost in shadow. Jin switched on the light attached to her shoulder. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing a vast empty space. In the center of the room was a raised platform, a dais. It was the only thing that wasn't covered in a thick layer of pale gray dust. "Okay," Min said, putting his kit down with a metallic thud. "I'll set up the base comms unit and run a power scan. You talk to the walls." Jin smiled faintly. She walked towards the dais, her light sweeping over the floor. More of the strange carvings were etched into the stone tiles. She pulled a small scanner from her belt. The device hummed softly, recording every line and curve. For hours, the only sounds were the hum of Jin's scanner, the clank of Min's tools, and their own breathing. Jin moved from wall to wall, completely absorbed. The language, if it was a language, was like nothing she had ever seen. It didn't seem to have a start or an end. It flowed. "Getting anything useful?" Min's voice came through the comms in her ear. "It's a puzzle," Jin whispered, not wanting to break the temple's silence. "The symbols don't work in a straight line. They connect in circles. It's all about connection." "Like a song," Min chuckled. "A song? Maybe the builders were musicians." "Maybe," Jin said. She had reached the central dais. It was a perfect circle of the same dark stone, polished smooth. In its center was a single large glyph. It looked like a spiral galaxy, with lines radiating out from its core to touch smaller glyphs around the edge of the dais. It looked like a control panel, but there were no buttons, no screens. She reached out, her gloved hand hovering over the central spiral. A strange feeling washed over her. It was not a sound, not a vibration she could feel with her body. It was a feeling in her mind. A quiet hum, a sense of waiting. She pulled her hand back. "It's probably just my imagination," she thought. She continued her work, documenting the glyphs on the walls. But her eyes kept drifting back to the dais. The feeling of a silent call was strong. It was like a word on the tip of her tongue, a memory from a dream she could not quite remember. Finally, she gave in. She walked back to the dais and stood before it. She took off her glove. The air was cold on her bare skin. Slowly, carefully, she placed her palm flat on the central spiral. The moment her skin touched the stone, the faint hum in her mind became a clear, soft note. The gray dust on the dais seemed to shimmer. The lines of the carvings glowed with a very faint, deep blue light, like embers starting to wake up. "Jin?" Min's voice was sharper now. "My scanner just picked up a low-level energy spike from your location." "What are you doing?" I'm not sure," she said, her voice full of wonder. She did not move her hand. The light pulsed slowly, rhythmically under her palm. It felt alive. It felt like it was listening to the beat of her heart. She looked at the smaller glyphs around the edge. Without thinking, she moved her fingers. She traced a path from one glyph to the next. It was not a random path. It felt right. It felt like the next step in a dance she knew by instinct. As her finger connected the third glyph to a fourth, the blue light brightened. The hum grew a little louder. "Jin, maybe you should stop," Min said. He was walking towards her now, his tools forgotten. We don't know what that is, but Jin could not stop. She was not in control anymore. Her hand moved on its own, guided by a knowledge that was not her own. The temple was no longer a silent, dead place. It was waking up, and it was speaking to her. She completed the sequence. Her finger rested on the final glyph. For a moment, nothing happened. The hum stopped. The blue light faded, then a soft click echoed through the great hall. From the center of the dais where her hand had been, a light erupted. It was not a harsh light. It was a warm golden glow that formed into a shape in the air above the dais. It was a complex three-dimensional pattern of lines and spheres slowly rotating. It was beautiful and clearly a machine of some kind waiting for an input. Jin and Min stared at it, their faces bathed in its golden light. They had not just found a ruin. They had found a machine that was still working after who knew how many thousands of years, and Jin had been the one to turn it on. The golden light from the dais painted the ancient walls with moving shadows. Jin and Min stood completely still, staring at the glowing shape that hung in the air. It was a complex web of lines and spheres, slowly turning like a tiny galaxy. The silence in the temple felt different now. It was no longer the silence of death, but a quiet, waiting hum. "What did you do?" Min asked, his voice a low whisper. He took a step closer, his engineer's eyes studying the floating pattern. "Is it a map? A computer?" "I don't know," Jin said. Her hand, now bare, still tingled from the contact with the stone. "It responded to my touch. It felt like it was waiting for a password." Min pulled out his scanner. The device chirped and whirred, its screen flashing with numbers. "The energy reading is stable. It's not dangerous. But it's a type of power I've never seen. It's not electric. It's not plasma. It's something else." He looked at Jin, his usual practical expression replaced by one of deep curiosity. "How did you know how to activate it?" "You just touched a few symbols." Jin shook her head, her eyes fixed on the golden light. "I didn't know. It just felt right. Like when you hear a song and you know what note comes next. The pattern was already in my head." She could not explain it better than that. It was a feeling, an instinct. They were so focused on the light that they did not hear the new sound at first. It was a low, deep rumble that came from outside. It was not the wind. It was the sound of engines. Min heard it first. His head snapped up. "That's not our shuttle." He ran to the temple entrance, his boots kicking up dust. Jin followed him, her heart suddenly beating fast. Outside, the sky was no longer empty. A ship, much larger than their small shuttle, was descending. It was long and gray, shaped like a blade. Its surface was smooth and without any markings they recognized. It moved with a silent, powerful grace that was frightening. It landed a few hundred meters from their own shuttle, its landing legs settling into the red sand without a sound. A door opened on the side of the ship. A ramp extended to the ground. Figures appeared in the doorway. They were tall and thin, dressed in long gray robes. Their skin was pale, almost white. Their eyes were large and dark, and they had no hair. They moved down the ramp in a single neat line. They did not speak. At the front of the group was one who was different. He was older, his back slightly bent. He leaned on a long staff made of a dark polished wood. At the top of the staff was a crystal that glowed with a soft white light. His large eyes scanned the area and then fixed on the temple entrance where Jin and Min stood. Min stepped in front of Jin. "Who are they?" He muttered. "I don't think they're here to help us," Jin whispered back. The old one with the staff walked towards them. His movements were slow and deliberate. The other gray-clad figures followed, their hands hidden in their sleeves. They stopped a few meters away. The old one looked at them. His face showed no emotion. When he spoke, his voice was deep and calm, but it carried a tone of absolute authority. "You are in a sacred place," he said. His words were not in Korean, but a small device on Min's belt translated them instantly. "This world is a tomb, a memory of the first children. You do not belong here." Min stood his ground. "Our mission is approved by the Galactic Accord. We are archaeologists. We are here to learn, not to steal." The old one, who Jin now thought of as the Cleric, did not even look at Min. His dark eyes were fixed on Jin. He seemed to sense that she was the one who cared about the stones and the words. "You seek to understand what is not for you to know," the Cleric said, his voice like stone grinding on stone. "The first children left this world. They left their language as a gift for the universe, but its meaning is for the creators alone. It is a lost tongue. No one can read it. No one can speak it. Your presence here is a noise in a holy silence." Jin felt a spark of anger. "How can you say it's a gift if no one is allowed to understand it?" "A gift should be opened." For the first time, the Cleric's expression changed. A faint look of pity crossed his face. "You are young. Your species is loud and curious. You touch everything. You do not understand reverence. You do not understand that some doors are meant to stay closed." He gestured with his staff towards the temple. "You will leave this place. You will take your machine and go. We will seal this world. Its secrets will remain secrets. The cleric's followers, the acolytes, moved forward. They did not seem threatening, but their numbers were intimidating. They began to walk towards the temple entrance, intending to go inside. Min moved to block the way. You can't just order us off a planet. We have rights. The cleric finally looked at Min. Your rights do not extend into the divine. He then turned his gaze back to Jin. His eyes narrowed slightly. He was studying her. He seemed to be looking for something in her face. Inside the temple, the golden light from the dais was still glowing, casting its warm light out through the entrance. The cleric saw it. His large dark eyes widened just a little. The calm on his face cracked for a second, showing a flash of something else. Surprise, and maybe concern. He had said the language was lost. He had said no one could wake the temple, but someone had. The warm golden light from the temple doorway painted the red sand. The cleric stared at it, his grip tightening on his staff. The calm, sure look on his face was gone. Now there was a deep and serious concern. He walked past Min and Jin without another word. His long gray robes brushed against the stone floor as he entered the temple. His acolytes followed him, forming a silent half-circle around the glowing dais. They looked at the floating, turning shape of light and spheres. They did not make a sound, but their postures showed they were shocked. Min and Jin came in after them. The mood in the large room had changed completely. It was no longer a place of quiet discovery. It was now a place of tension. The cleric stood before the dais. He looked at the complex hologram with something like fear and wonder. He raised his staff. The crystal at the top glowed brighter. This is the seal of Genesis, he said, his voice low and full of emotion. He was not talking to the humans. He was talking to himself or to his followers. It has been silent since the great departure. Since the first children left this universe for a higher plane, no one has been able to wake it. Not in 1,000 cycles. He turned his large dark eyes towards Jin. There was no pity in them now. There was a sharp, demanding look. What did you do? What blasphemy did you perform here? Jin felt a chill, but she stood straight. I didn't perform any blasphemy. I touched the stone. I felt a pattern in my mind. I followed it. A pattern? The cleric asked, his voice dangerous and quiet. You, a human, felt the sacred pattern of the first children? Impossible. Your species crawls between stars while ours was studying their wonders. You're like children. Min stepped forward, his face hard. She's telling the truth. Your scanner can probably confirm it. There was no trick. The temple responded to her. The cleric ignored him. He kept his eyes locked on Jin. Show me, he commanded. Jin hesitated. She looked at the dais, then at the cleric's stern face. She did not want to perform for him like some kind of animal, but she also knew that he would not believe her unless he saw it, and a part of her, the curious part, wanted to see if she could do it again. She walked slowly to the dais. The acolytes watched her, their faces unreadable. The golden light made her skin look warm. She took a deep breath and placed her bare palm back on the central spiral. The same soft hum filled her mind. The deep blue light traced the carvings under her hand. She closed her eyes for a second, finding the pattern in her thoughts. It was still there, clear and sure. She moved her fingers, tracing the same path from one glyph to the next. It was a simple sequence, a greeting, a way of saying, I am here. As her finger connected the final glyph, the golden hologram pulsed brightly. A low musical tone echoed through the hall. The hologram shifted, the spheres moving to new positions. It was waiting for the next thing. Jin took her hand away. The light remained. She looked at the cleric. It's a language. It's not meant to be looked at. It's meant to be felt. The cleric's face was a mask of stone, but his eyes were burning. He had seen it. He had seen the stone come alive for this human girl. His faith, his entire understanding of the universe, was being challenged right in front of him. He would not accept it. You use some trick, he stated, his voice cold. A human technology we do not know. You mock our most holy beliefs. He stepped forward, pushing past Jin. He stood before the dais and lifted his staff high. He began to chant. His voice was deep and guttural, full of power. The words were old, from his own people's ancient tongue. They were prayers they had used for centuries to honor the first children. They were the closest things to holy words that he knew. He chanted with great feeling. The crystal on his staff glowed with a fierce white light. He poured all his authority, all his devotion into the sound. The temple did nothing. The golden hologram continued its slow, silent turn. The blue light under the stone remained a soft glow. The ancient machinery was completely uninterested in his chant. It was like he was speaking a different language to a locked door. The cleric's voice faltered. He chanted louder, more desperately. He tried a different prayer, his voice rising in pitch. Still nothing happened. The silence in the temple felt heavy, almost mocking. His acolytes shifted nervously. They had never seen their cleric fail. They had never seen their holy words have no effect. The cleric lowered his staff. His shoulders slumped. The fierce light in his eyes was gone, replaced by a confused emptiness. He had given the temple the best of his faith, and it had ignored him. He turned and looked at Jin. The anger was gone. Now there was only a profound, world-shattering confusion. The temple had chosen. It had answered her simple touch and ignored his complex prayers. And in the new silence, everyone understood what that meant. The silence in the temple was heavy and deep. The cleric stood frozen, his staff now hanging loosely in his grip. He stared at Jin, but he was not really seeing her. He was seeing 1,000 years of his people's belief shatter into pieces. The holy words, the prayers he had spent his life mastering, were just noise to this ancient place. They meant nothing. His acolytes watched him, their own faith trembling. They had never seen him look so lost. Jin looked from the broken cleric to the glowing dais. The golden hologram still turned slowly, waiting. She felt a strange mix of pity and excitement. She had not wanted to hurt the old alien, but she could not ignore the call of the temple. It was speaking to her, and she had to answer. The feeling was stronger now. The first sequence was just a hello. The hologram was a lock, and the first pattern was just tapping on the door. Now the door was asking a question. She could feel it in her mind, a new pattern forming. It was more complex than the first. A flowing, beautiful sentence made of light and meaning. She did not understand the words, not with her thinking mind. But her heart understood. It was a question about origin. A question about home. It was asking, where do you come from? Min saw the look on her face. Jin, he said softly. What is it? She's going to do it again. One of the acolytes murmured, his voice full of fear. The cleric did not move. He did not tell her to stop. He just watched, his dark eyes wide as if witnessing a miracle he did not want to see. Jin stepped back to the dais. The stone felt warm under her bare feet. She placed both hands on the cool surface on either side of the central spiral. She closed her eyes. The hum in her mind became a song, a quiet ancient melody. The new pattern glowed behind her eyelids, a path of connected stars. She began to trace the glyphs. Her fingers moved with a sure and graceful speed. She did not hesitate. She moved from one symbol to the next, her touch light and certain. Each time her finger connected two glyphs, the blue light under the stone brightened and a soft musical tone sounded in the air. It was not a random noise. It was a language. The tones had rhythm and pitch like someone speaking a beautiful, forgotten poem. The cleric and his acolytes listened, utterly captivated. They had never heard sounds like this. The cleric's own prayers were harsh and commanding. These sounds were fluid and gentle, full of a deep, quiet joy. Jin's voice joined the music. At first it was just a soft breath. Then as her fingers traced a long, curling glyph, a word formed in her throat and slipped from her lips. It was not a word in Korean. It was not a word in any human language. It was a sound that was both a picture and a feeling. It meant seed, beginning, stardust. The moment she spoke, the entire temple seemed to take a deep breath. The pillars hummed in harmony with her voice. The golden hologram pulsed with light. The cleric's staff, which he had been holding loosely, suddenly felt like a heavy, useless piece of wood. His fingers went numb. The polished staff slipped from his grasp. It hit the stone floor with a loud, sharp crack that echoed through the hall. The sound broke the spell for everyone but Jin. The acolytes jumped, their eyes going from their leader's empty hands to the human girl who was speaking the divine tongue. The cleric did not even notice he had dropped his staff. He was staring at Jin, his mouth slightly open. All the color had drained from his pale face. The word that escaped his lips was not a prayer. It was a quiet, broken whisper filled with a terror and an awe he could not control. Impossible, Jin did not hear him. She was deep in the conversation. Her fingers kept moving and her voice grew stronger, more confident. She spoke another word phrase. This one meant ocean cradle. Womb of life, the hologram shifted again. The spheres rearranged themselves into a new, more complex pattern. A soft blue light bloomed in the center of the golden web, looking like a tiny, beautiful planet. The temple was not just listening, it was understanding. It was answering, and Jin was the only one in the universe who could talk to it. The word impossible hung in the air, a small, quiet sound against the music of the temple. The cleric did not move to pick up his staff. It lay on the cold stone, a symbol of his old power that now meant nothing. His entire body was focused on Jin. He watched the human woman as if she were a star that had fallen to the ground and started to speak. Jin was in another world. Her eyes were open, but she was not seeing the temple or the stunned aliens. She was seeing the meanings behind the words she spoke. As her fingers traced the third part of the sequence, a new set of concepts flowed into her mind and out of her mouth. Journey, she sang, her voice clear and strong. The sound was like a river flowing over smooth stones. Long travel in the dark, seeking. The golden hologram responded instantly. The tiny blue planet in its center sprouted fine silver lines that reached out towards the edge of the web. It was a map of star routes of an ancient voyage. Min stood by the entrance, his toolkit forgotten at his feet. He had known Jin for years. He knew she was smart and loved old languages. But this was different. This was not study. This was remembering. She was not learning the language. She was speaking a language she already knew deep in her soul. A cold wonder ran down his spine. Who was his friend? What connection did she have to this dead world? The cleric finally moved. He took one slow, shaky step forward, then another. He did not walk like a powerful leader anymore. He walked like a very old man, his shoulders bent under a heavy weight. He stopped a few feet from the dais, his large eyes reflecting the golden light. The anger and pride were completely gone from his face. Now there was only a desperate, hungry need to understand. He listened to the beautiful alien words coming from Jin. He had spent his life trying to capture a tiny piece of this feeling in his harsh prayers. He had built a whole religion on the silence of these stones. And now, that silence was being broken by the last person in the universe he would have ever expected. Jin's hands moved to the final set of glyphs. This was the last part of the answer. This was the reason for the journey. Her voice softened, filled with a deep and gentle emotion. The words she spoke were the most beautiful yet. To find others, she whispered into the humming air. To hear your song. We are not alone. The effect was immediate and breathtaking. The golden hologram flashed once so brightly that everyone had to shield their eyes. When the light faded, the complex web of lines was gone. In its place was a simple glowing symbol. It was two spirals, intertwined, dancing around each other in a perfect balance. It meant connection. It meant friendship. A deep, resonant chime echoed from the stones themselves, a sound of approval and completion. The blue light in the carvings on the dais glowed steady and warm. The lock was open. The question had been answered correctly. The temple was satisfied. Jin slowly lowered her hands. She felt tired, but also more peaceful than she had ever felt in her life. It was like finishing a long and important conversation with a dear friend. She blinked and looked around as if waking from a dream. She saw Min's amazed face. She saw the acolytes, who were now kneeling on the ground, their heads bowed. And she saw the cleric. He was standing right in front of her. Tears were streaming from his large, dark eyes, leaving wet tracks on his pale skin. He was not looking at the symbol or the dais. He was looking only at her. He slowly bent his stiff back. He bowed to her. It was a deep, formal bow of great respect. When he straightened up, his voice was rough with emotion. For 1,000 cycles, he said, we believed we were the faithful ones. We guarded the silence, thinking it was holy. We thought the first children were gods who had left us behind. He gestured to the glowing symbol, his hand trembling. But they were not gods. They were explorers, like you. They did not want silent guards. They wanted someone to talk to. He looked at Jin with a new understanding, a humility that changed his entire face. The language was never lost. It was just waiting for the right person to come and remember it. The two spirals glowed in the air, a silent symbol of a connection made across an ocean of time. The low hum of the temple was now a constant, comfortable sound, like the breathing of a great sleeping creature that was finally at peace. The fear was gone from the room, replaced by a quiet awe. The cleric did not move from his spot before Jin. He looked from her face to the glowing symbol and then back again. He was a man who had just seen his entire world turned upside down, and he was trying to find which way was up. "What does it mean?" he asked Jin. His voice was not demanding anymore. It was a request. He was asking her to be his teacher. Jin looked at the intertwined spirals. She did not need a translation. The meaning was clear in her heart. "It means they found what they were looking for," she said softly. "And so have we." She reached out her hand, not to the stone but towards the symbol. As her fingers got close, the light did not flicker or fade. It warmed her skin. A wave of images and feelings flowed into her mind. She saw stars being born. She saw planets cooling. She saw the first children not as gods but as people looking up at the night sky with the same wonder she felt. They were not so different. "They left this here as a message," Jin explained, her eyes still on the light. "Not a test. A welcome. They hoped that one day someone would come who understood that the universe is about sharing stories, not hiding them." One of the acolytes, a young one, slowly got up from his knees. He pointed a shaking finger at the far wall. "Cleric Valerius, look." Where before there had been only solid stone and ancient carvings, a new opening had appeared. A doorway, outlined in the same soft blue light, now led deeper into the temple. It had not been there moments before. The temple was opening up for them. The cleric, Valerius, stared at the new passage. His old mind, trained for a lifetime to see mystery as something to be locked away, struggled with this new idea. Mystery as an invitation. He turned to his acolytes. Their faces were confused and scared. They looked to him for guidance, for an order. He was their leader. What would he do? Would he command them to seal the temple? Would he deny what he had just seen and heard? Valerius looked down at his staff still lying on the floor. It represented his old duty, to protect the silence. He made a decision. He walked over to it, but he did not pick it up. Instead, he used his foot and gently pushed it to the side, out of the way. It was a small action, but everyone understood its meaning. He was letting go of his old power. He faced his followers. "The old path is closed," he said, his voice firm but kind. "We were wrong. We thought we were honoring the first children by keeping their secrets. But we were dishonoring them. They wanted to share." He gestured towards Jin and Min. "They are not defilers. They are the ones we have been waiting for. The first children did not speak our language. They spoke the language of curiosity. And she," he said, looking at Jin with deep respect, "is the first person in ages to answer them in their own tongue." He walked towards the new doorway, then stopped and looked back at Jin. "Will you lead the way?" Jin glanced at Min. He gave her a small, proud smile and a nod. He would follow her anywhere. "Yes," Jin said. She walked forward, past Valerius, and stepped through the blue-lit doorway. Min followed right behind her. For a moment the acolytes hesitated. They looked at their cleric. Valerius took a deep breath and, without looking back at his old life or his staff on the floor, he followed the two humans into the heart of the temple. The room they entered was not large. It was circular with walls that were not stone but something that looked like frozen light. In the center of the room was a single, small pedestal. On it rested not a weapon or a treasure, but a single, perfect crystal. It was clear, and inside it tiny points of light swirled like a captured galaxy. As Jin approached, the crystal glowed. A voice filled the room. It was not a sound heard with the ears, but a voice heard in the mind. It was gentle and wise, and it spoke in the same flowing musical language Jin had used. "Welcome," the voice said, "to those who come in peace and in wonder. We have left you our stories. We have left you the map of the stars we loved. The universe is a song. We give you our part. Now you must add your own." The voice faded. The crystal continued to glow, a library of knowledge and history waiting to be explored. Jin, Min, Valerius, and the acolytes stood together in the soft light. A human, a pilot, an alien cleric, and his followers. They were no longer separated by beliefs or species. They were united by a shared discovery. The age of silent, blind faith was over. The age of conversation had begun, and it had started with a single, impossible hello.